Think trans folk are new? Let me tell you the remarkable story of Beryl Beyla, a Jewish man who transitioned in the shtetl in Ukraine in the 1800s and was radically and beautifully embraced by his community. I'm Rabbi Daniel Bogard. I'm a rabbi. I am an activist in the Missouri legislature, and all month I am going to be sharing texts from a rainbow thread, 2,000 years of queer Jewish history. So to tell the story of Beryl Beyla, we actually have to start in the 1930s in what comes to be known as the Nazi Olympics. It turns out that there was this whole phenomenon where people were going off and competing in the women's games and coming back as men. Now, most of us don't know about this because we don't teach queer history, but in the 30s, there was a huge uproar in the international press about this whole trans thing sweeping the world. Oh my God, consider the children. And so there was an old Jewish man living in the shtetl who hears about this in Brooklyn, who writes a letter to the editor in Yiddish to the Daily Forward saying, "You crazy people who think this trans thing is new, let me tell you the story of Beryl Beyla." So our letter writer, Yeshaya Kitovsky, starts by saying, back in the shtetl, there was this person, someone who was a girl who never seemed quite comfortable in their own skin, never seemed quite like a man, and never seemed quite like a woman. Yeshaya tells us that Beyla's dad immediately wanted to help his child who felt like a man trapped within a woman's body, so takes Beyla to all the great rabbis of this era to see if anyone can do anything. And y'all, from this point on, our letter writer uses the right pronouns for him, switches to him. So if they can do it 100 years ago in Yiddish, we can do it today. Beyla's dad found a doctor out in Russia who Beyla went to and came back as a man. The whole town, the whole shtetl went out to greet, and the letter writer says her, or better yet, I should say him. And they greet him, and they welcome him. And they teach him to be a part of the prayer service, a part of the minyan, a time when only men would have been counted. And our letter ends by saying that Beryl Beyla was married off to Rachel, and that he always had a good name as a fine, upstanding Jew in their shtetl. I started crying the first time I heard this text because I realized my son has ancestors. And so I have taught this to Missouri legislators. I have testified under Beryl Beyla's name. And I love this idea that 100 years later, his memory is protecting trans kids today. May his memory inspire all of us to make a better world. Happy Pride.